This shir is Le'il Nishmas Zoya Bas Tamara. And what that means is that we're having her in mind, and all the words of Torah that you hear and that I speak will help bring an aliyah to her neshama, where she'll go closer and closer to Hashem in Shamayim. In addition, it's also my grandfather's yard site. My good mother mentioned it on the way here, and I said I would mention him as well. His name is Rabbi Eisenman. He was Rabbi Eisenman. He was a rabbi in all sorts of places, including Fargo, North Dakota, Bangor, Maine, Toledo, Ohio, and eventually he ended up in Minnesota, where he became the principal of the day school, and many people became closer to Hashem. A lot of the kids learned Torah in Minnesota. Eventually, Rabbi Eisenman moved to Eretz Yisrael, and he built a hospital. The name of the hospital is called Laniado. And he became close to the Kozhenberger Rebbe. And together they built this hospital, which is a wonderful hospital, and that's his legacy. So I say this, Le'il Nishmas, my grandfather, as well. And the last thing I'm going to mention, very important, I'm a big fan of Torah Anytime. You see, Torah Anytime is here. We all are. If you are a growth-oriented person, it's impossible not to have Torah Anytime in your life. It is a gift to Klal Yisrael. We're living in a very unique time where we could just flip open a phone or a computer, or just pick up a phone and dial in and be able to listen to Torah at our leisure. But even more so, they started something called the Daily Dose. And the Daily Dose allows people to get an injection of inspiration quickly and easily. And how many people here are part of Daily Dose? So we'll... No? Just 2 people? Okay, good. So it's good that we're mentioning it here. Daily Dose. I'm part of the Daily Dose, not just as a speaker, but I received the Daily Dose. I'm going to tell you how to do it really quickly, because people are like, how do I do it? If you have WhatsApp, so it's a WhatsApp-based thing. If you have WhatsApp, you call the following number. I'm going to say it because this is Torah Anytime, so not just the people in this room are going to hear it, but everyone who re-listens to the shir will hear this as well. So who knows how much Torah will spread just like that. So the phone number is 929-355-4268. It's again 929-355-4268. So what you're going to do is you're going to add that number to your contact list. And after you add it to your contact list, you then go to that contact and message to that contact the words "add me," and then you're going to be part of Daily Dose. So it's really easy. You just add that phone number, add the words "add me," and you'll be able to get inspired. You know, that's Torah made easy. So. Since this is a women's group, I feel I can go deeper than if there are guys here. So we're gonna go a little bit deep tonight, very deep actually, if that's okay. We'll get all comfortable. Sometimes you go to a shir and you are there for inspiration. Someone gets up and they yell and scream, or they wave their hands, and then sometimes you go to a shir like Rabbi Kiva Tatz that makes you think. You ever hear him? A thinking shir. So this is going to be a little of both, but certainly the thinking part. The real question is, today's Rosh Chodesh Adar, and Adar is a time to be happy. I'm smiling. I just love Adar. I love Adar because it means that Nisan's on the way, and I love Pesach. But I love Adar as well because Adar is a time of Simcha. And like Shlomo HaMelech says, there's a time for everything in the world. There's a time to be sad. Being sad is okay. There are times where, you're not damaged goods if you're sad. There's a time to cry, right? Eis livkos. There's a time to cry. There's a time to be happy. There's a time to go to war. Eis milchama. There's a time to go to war. It's really interesting. In this politically correct environment, there are some of those that you'd have to erase. Not allowed to cry, not allowed to go to war. It's all love and peace, the old, imagine all the people. But that's not the way it is. Shlomo HaMelech says it's very legitimate every single time that we're that we are subject to, because everything can be channeled to Hashem. So even if you're feeling a little bit sad or depressed, that's very normal. It's very normal to sometimes feel down, and you don't necessarily need to ingest medication or go to therapy. Sometimes you're allowed to be down. There's nothing wrong with that. It's wrong if you're down all the time, or if you're down in inappropriate times like your own wedding, then it's very, very not good. But there are times that you're down, and there's times where you should be joyous, but not at all times. For example, Chodesh Av. And that's why Chazal tell us sometimes we're supposed to be happy, sometimes not. And everything has its time, every emotion has its time. So what can be added for Chodesh Adar that you haven't heard before? Many of you have been around the block. You've heard many shiurim. You listened to many shiurim. So what about Chodesh Adar and maybe Purim specifically, because Adar really is all about Purim. That's the Simcha, the Mazel Adar revolves around Purim. Something to enrich us and let us think. So the first thing I want to use what happened to me earlier today as a launching point, and then I'm going to refer back to it. So some days I speak once, twice, 3 times, and my talk earlier today was also to women only, and it was a very inspiring group. It was the Olami Mekarvos Conference. Now you may have heard of Olami before, right? Olami is an organization which does outreach, hires rabbis and rebbitzins to do outreach on campuses all around the world, and young professionals. So there's Olami in Queens College, there's Olami at UCLA. Tomorrow morning, I will be flying early in the morning to Madison, Wisconsin, and there is Olami in Madison, Wisconsin. From there, I'm going to go to NYU Thursday night. I'm speaking twice to Olami in NYU. And it's not just in North America, but it's in Brazil, and it's in Zurich, and it's in Tel Aviv. It's everywhere, Olami. And there are rabbis who are very often the very vocal, loud figureheads, but there are rebbitzins, and the rebbitzins are amazing human beings on every level. And I'll speak a little bit to that later on, but I have the zchus today of speaking to the rebbitzins. The rebbitzin of Madison was there, and the rebbitzin of Staten Island was there today, and the rebbitzin of York and Toronto, which has a lot of anti-Semitism, and McGill University in Montreal, and so on and so forth. And it was a zchus to speak to them. And I want to tie that in to what we're going to speak about tonight. We're going to ask some very interesting questions, and it will give us a beautiful understanding of not just Purim, but where we are in history. Now, people could be watching this for many years, right? That's how what lives on the internet just lives. I don't know how long the internet will be around, but it's around, and hopefully the Torah is going to stick around. So people who watch this later on may not know where we are right now. So we are in the middle of a coronavirus scare. That's where we are at the time of the giving this year. What's going to be the history? I don't know. As of this year, it didn't really reach America. I think 54 people have been infected. But just a few minutes ago, they declared a state of emergency in San Francisco. And another city as well did. And slowly but surely, they're going to be declaring a state of emergency. And maybe people watching this in a few years from now will say, oh, they overreacted. Or maybe they'll say, oh boy, if they would only know what's coming. Who knows, right? That's the vantage point of history. What I would tell you is that it's not a bad idea, seriously, to stock up on food. Because when, and not if, probably when it arrives in New York, there will be a rush. It's just the way it is. And we'll be going to the store, and this is what's happened in every city. But, so you get some food, have it in the house, because you may not have, may not send your kids to school for a month. It's very possible. Sorry, but that's what's going on. That is the nature of a month is like that's a very conservative estimate. It could be much longer. Isn't that fun? The Jewish had older kids, right? I got little kids still at home also. Buy a lot of crayons, magic markers. And that's what's going on at the time of this year. And it's a little bit scary. A pandemic. We have not seen a pandemic in our lifetime. We don't know about the Spanish flu. We don't understand what it means to have things like the Black Plague or the Black Death that kills 500 million people. It's a very scary thing. People are trying to downplay the coronavirus, but that's a very silly thing to do because its rate of mortality is very high. It's 1 in 40. 1 in 40 people, unfortunately, have passed away. And the flu, it's like 0.01%. It's a much smaller percentage. It's a very scary thing. Even my father, who happens to be a doctor, I spoke to him about it, and he's used to like poo-pooing everything. Like, he's not poo-pooing this, which that legitimately tells me this is something else that we may not be aware of how serious this is, but he says this is actually a serious thing. So, what's Hashem doing before Purim, before Pesach, in this world? Okay, what else is going on at this time in history for those of you watching this years from now? Well, we have a sort of an anti-Semitic Jew running for president. Right, these poor voters have the anti-Semites are stuck between a rock and a hard place because eventually, you'll have Bernie versus Trump. So you either have to vote for the Jew or the president that loves Jews. So yeah, they're going to be or loves Israel. That's what's going on now. The chess pieces are moving. Eretz Yisrael wants to annex Yehuda v'Shamron. That's what's going on now as well. There's a lot happening in the world, a lot, and this is just the tip of the iceberg. We need a vantage point. So let's ask a troubling question. We need to be headed towards Mashiach. We need to, right? It's either Mashiach or the abyss. Right? What are we heading towards in history? If the Jewish people have gullahs, eventually, the difficulty of gullahs and the time that it takes will decimate and depress. But we know, even though it's been 2,000 years since Beis HaMikdash, 3,300 plus years since Matan Torah, I wait. Question. Things are not really getting better. Things seem to be going downhill. Let me explain to you. We used to have things called Nevi'im, people called Nevi'im. Nevi'im were the prophets that were able to speak to Hashem in a very intimate relationship way. They would give messages straight from Hashem to the people. It's a very high level. Then we had Bayis Rishon. Bayis Rishon was phenomenal. It's hard for us to appreciate this, but I want to mention this. I speak to college students. I spoke last night in Drexel University. It's in Philadelphia, and a lot of the students are not that affiliated, and they may look down on their own people because the Jewish people seem somewhat depressed. And I tell them, you have to understand, we had a Beis HaMikdash, or I told them a temple, in Eretz Yisrael for nearly 1,000 years. We had 410 years, a 70-year break exile, and then 420 years. You're talking about 830 years. That's 4 times longer than America's been a country. We were on top of the world. Okay, near the end, Rome, but still, when you saw the Beis HaMikdash of Hurdas, it was almost a kilometer long from the base of Har HaBayis. It was greater than any of the quote-unquote 7 wonders of the world. Beis HaMikdash was greater than all of them. We were very powerful, but in the first Beis HaMikdash, you came and what you saw? Miracles. You were able to see Nisim. It was amazing. You could see the fire, the smoke go straight up. You saw the Chut HaShani. You saw the red string turn white. Seems like magic. Hashem working his efforts towards the Jewish people. He went to the Urim V'Tumim, and the letters lit up. This was amazing stuff. And then came Churban Bayis by the Babylonians. And the second Beis HaMikdash did not have a lot of what the first Beis HaMikdash did. It was nicer. Not the Beis HaMikdash that Ezra and Nehemiah built. That was less nice than the first Beis HaMikdash because they were very poor when they came back from Bavel. They were very poor. But then comes along King Hordus, and although he himself was a very controversial figure, but one of the things Chazal said he did beautifully is he built a big Beis HaMikdash. It was gorgeous. From all over the world people came, but at the end of the day, the Nisim, you didn't see it. As a matter of fact, if you came into the Kodesh Kodashim in the second Beis HaMikdash, you know what you would see? Nothing. There was not even an Aron Kodesh there. The Aron Kodesh was removed after the first Beis HaMikdash, and the second Beis HaMikdash, it was an empty room. It's a little bit sad, right? We picture. And then we lose even that. And then we don't have a Beis HaMikdash, we don't have Nevi'im, we don't have Tanoim, we don't have Amoraim, we don't have Ruach HaKodesh, we don't have Tchias HaMeisim. It says, Chazal say that anyone who's mentioned in the Gemara was able to perform Tchias HaMeisim. We don't have anyone who could do Tchias HaMeisim today, that I know of, to revive the dead. It's very, very holy. Today, what do we have? We've got Facebook. We've got, WhatsApp groups. We have cars, but the Kedusha, it seems like we're going downhill. It doesn't seem like progress. If anything, we seem further and further and further away from Yemot HaMashiach. Would we agree to that? Okay. Even though, just to put in for our benefit, we are learning Torah, and we do have Torah anytime, and we do have Daf Yomi that fills up stadiums. As a matter of fact, it's hard to appreciate this, but there's more Torah learned in America today than there ever was in Europe after 1,000 years of Europe. Meaning, from when we came back, we rebuilt Torah in such a hurry. And there's more Torah being learned in Eretz Yisrael than there ever was in Europe. Both. They're both bigger than it was in Europe. Okay? Maybe not the same caliber. For sure not the same caliber, not the same quality. But there's a lot of Torah. But at the end of the day, it doesn't feel like we're heading in the right direction. So we have to ask that question. Then let's ask a few more questions. I wrote down the questions. I think it's important. Purim is all about hiddenness. Esther. V'anochi haster aster panai. I'm going to hide my face. Hiddenness. Hashem's hiddenness. How many times is Hashem mentioned in the Megillah? 0. Hiddenness. What's the concept of hiddenness? Why is that such a big theme? And by the way, it is a big theme. Masechos v'rashanim zmirot v'rikudim. What's masechot? Masks. Why do we wear masks? Because of the hiddenness. Hiddenness is something we're actually celebrating. We're celebrating hiddenness. To understand what's going on here. More than that, we celebrate confusion. Chayev Adam lebesume b'poraya. Got to get drunk. I don't know, Baruch, Oror. Why? Why are we celebrating drunkenness and hiddenness? It's very, very complex. There's another thing that we're celebrating, very much so, on Purim, and it's the concept of Achatas. Achatas is a major theme. It's the reason that Haman wanted to destroy us, but he said, Yesh lo am echad, mufuzar, mufayir ben amim. They're all separated. Come along Chazal, they say, we should have a mitzvah. You know what the mitzvah is? Mishalach manas, ish l'reyehu. Do we even have such an example? We have examples of doing chesed. right? Halach ma'anya, we're going to say, come, kol dichvin, come, let me feed you, right? We have for aniyim, we have, right? But giving food to a friend doesn't need, they can be very wealthy, and you still did your mitzvah. So there's a point that we want to bring Achatas to Klal Yisrael. What is it about Achatas that is so Purim-centric? That's another question. Another question. We're going to tie all this together. Purim, there's a mitzvah called Pirsumei Nisa. Pirsumei Nisa, we've got to spread the nace. So therefore the halacha is, for example, if I'm learning Torah, it says in the Gemara and Megillah, if I'm learning Torah, and then it's time to read the Megillah, so I can leave my Torah learning to read the Megillah. Why? My Torah learning may have been very deep. Eon. The Megillah is it's not deep. I'm just listening to it being read. You can learn it deeply. But when I'm listening to it being read, I'm not learning it deep. What's so important that I have to be there by the Megillah reading? Why is Pirsumei Nisa, spreading the nace, that important? So, I'm going to tell you a concept that is the key to unlocking Purim, and it's the key to understanding where we stand today in history. But it starts with the following question. I get this question from my students all the time. They say like this. They say, Rabbi, nace. You want me to believe in Hashem? Give me a nace. Show me a nace. So I said, Hashem has shown us nisim in the past. He took us out of Mitzrayim. Hashem has done nisim. No, I want to see a nace. Show me a nace. You want me to believe? So what do we say? We say, no. Hashem's not going to do nisim on demand. You know why? Because a nace is not necessarily a good thing. Now this is very interesting. Christians, they canonize saints. That means they take people like Mother Teresa and they make her into a saint. Whatever that means. What do they need to prove to make someone into a saint in Christianity? They have to prove that this person has done 2 miracles. That's actually the procedure. You have to have witnesses that say, we watched miracles. Meaning the miracle is the litmus test of greatness. For our Gedolim, would we say, well, you're not a Gadol unless I see a miracle? Would we say that? What makes someone a Gadol? Throwing it out there. Give me something. It's not nace, so what? Midos. Character. What else?
Torah learning.
Torah learning. Maybe the way they daven. The way they treat their spouse. When I tell stories about Rav Moshe Feinstein to my students, I don't say miraculous stories. I say the story when someone was picking him up for yeshiva. They used to give him rides, and the Talmud, he was a new Talmud, didn't realize he had slammed the door on all of Rav Moshe's fingers. And Rav Moshe knew the guy would have been mortified. This young, eager Bacher was all excited to pick up Rav Moshe from his house driving 10 blocks. So he slams the door on all of Rav Moshe's fingers outside the door. Rav Moshe doesn't say a word, doesn't say boo, not a peep. 10 blocks. Why? Because he was in such control of his midos that he understood if he screams, what's going to happen? This guy will never look in the mirror again. And so he doesn't scream. That's what makes a gadol. That's greatness. That's what we say. Miracles are not necessarily a good thing. What is a miracle? So how do you say miracle in Hebrew? Miracle is a nace. What does the word nace mean? The word nace means a flag or a banner. To understand nace, you would have to go back in time to see how war used to be waged. Today, you could destroy a country if you hack their computers. But in the olden days, before tanks, before guns, how was war waged? War was awfully bloody. War had 2 groups, And they would say, charge! And they would charge at each other with the bayonets and with the swords and the spears. And they would just stab each other in the bellies and in the hearts and the blood. And they would get stomped on, trampled by horses. It was traumatic, like therapy worthy, right? Oh my goodness, I saw my friend get smushed by a horse, right? That's a terrible thing to see. That's what war was. That's what war was. So imagine a soldier, and he's with a bunch of his co-soldiers, and they go rushing into battle, and in the challenge of the battle, in the thick of the battle, as people are stabbing each other and dying and being crushed, and sometimes it wasn't a beautiful day. Sometimes it was a day that was muddy and rainy, right? You didn't just go to battle on good days. Sometimes you went to battle in rainy days, and the fields they would battle in would be muddy, and people's faces were black from the mud and dirt, and be stomped and trampled, and you can imagine a soldier suddenly getting a panic attack. Like you couldn't even tell who was on your side because everyone was full of mud. Just people were like sticking each other with spears. And it was a real traumatic, anxiety-provoking moment. So, I'm a soldier. I don't know who's on my side. Everyone's on the ground. So you know what I do? This is what they used to do. They used to have a banner. And they would lift this banner high. The banner was in the back. So it wasn't it wasn't at the point of battle. It was a little bit further back. And if you would lose your friends and you didn't know, hey, which side am I even on? You'd get dizzy. You'd be disoriented. So what you would do is you would look at the banner and you would go running towards the banner. That's where the expression rally around the banner comes from. Let's go rally around the flag or rally around the banner comes from war. So you run, you rally around the banner. All those who are survivors, they go rally around the banner. So you've got 2 people on the banner, 4, now we've got 20 people. Okay, got 20 people. Okay, now together as a unit, let's go back. Go into battle. Everyone's bloody, disoriented. Go back to the banner. And that's how they used to fight. The banner was a reminder of where their group was. It was an indicator. A nace is Hashem raising a banner saying, I'm here. You're a little bit confused? Come back, I'm right here. This is where I am. And you rally around the banner. So Hashem has us rally around a nace. And that's what nace is, a banner. What's the problem with nace? So we all understand the problem with nace. When you have a miracle, you may lose free will. So miracles, and we understand in the same way, if a person said, Hashem, you make my car outside levitate, make it do a few flips in the air, and I will never again miss Kriya Shema on the right time. Well, if your car suddenly levitates in the air, you will set 5 alarms every night to make sure you don't miss Kriya Shema. Because Hashem just appeared to you, and it was obvious, and there's no question about it. So what that does is it takes away my free choice to either yes, do Shema on the right time or not. In the same way, I'm sure you've all heard this example. If somebody takes a gun and they stick it to your forehead and they say, give all your money to tzedakah or I will kill you. If you give all your money to tzedakah, did you do a great thing? Not so much. You had no choice. You didn't want to die, so you gave up your money. A nace coerces, it forces us to see Hashem and to live in His way. Now, let's bring out another point. Hashem did not need to make this world. Hashem was very happy all by Himself. Right? The world is in Hashem. Hashem's not in the world. Right? The world is all contained within Hashem. But Hashem wanted to create us so He can give us goodness. So what Hashem does is He creates us and He hides His presence. Let's say very quickly what this is all called. We call this the quadratic structure. We'll say very quickly. Quadratic structure means like this. The first part is, the first part is called Hester Yechudo. Hashem takes his oneness in the world and hides it. Now, what does that mean? It means like this. Really, you and I we're not just the same. We are one. We are all a chelek Elokam mimal. We're all part of Hashem, correct? So, you and I are not two different people. That's an illusion. It's an illusion. Okay? This whole world is one big fat illusion. When I feel something that I'm pushing, isn't that when I push something and I feel it, I'm not really feeling a thing. I'm feeling, the electrons pushing against electrons. I'm not feeling it. And this is all empty space mostly. The world is a very funny illusion. So one of the great illusions is illusion of separation. I am not different than my jacket. My jacket is part of Hashem and I'm part of Hashem. We're all a chelek elokam mimal. Right? Understand that the whole world is one piece of Hashem. That's why, interestingly enough, in science, there's a law called the law of the conservation of energy and the law of the conservation of matter, which means you cannot add or subtract matter or energy to the universe. The universe has a set amount of matter. Why? If I could change matter's form, but it still remains matter. Why? Because there's a certain... Hashem puts his malchus in the world, and you can't add to Hashem, you can't subtract to Hashem. Hashem is Hashem. So, it is an illusion that you and I are separate. Hashem creates that illusion through something called Hester Yichudo. He hides his oneness. What's our job? Our job is called Gilui Yichudo. By the way, the quadratic structure has the word Yichudo at the end of all four. So all you got to do is remember the first word. Hester Yichudo, Hashem hides his oneness. Our job is Gilui Yichudo, to reveal that you and I are one. How do we do that? Through step 3, through Eidus Yichudo, through testifying that Hashem is one. How do you testify Hashem is one? Through mitzvos. Right, by me taking an apple and say, Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech borei pri ha'etz, what I'm saying is, this apple is part of Hashem and I'm part of Hashem. So thank you, Hashem, for reuniting me with the apple, which is also you, just like I'm you. It's all oneness. The food that I eat, the clothing that I wear, the shoes that I wear, the house, it's all Hashem's oneness. And when I put a mezuzah on the house, that's Eidus Yichuda. When I check my garment for shatnez, that's Eidus Yichuda. Understand? And what is the fourth part? Fourth part is the great reward. And the reward is called Hasagas Yichudo, which means I will then appreciate and understand Hashem's oneness, and that's Olam Haba. The point of this talk was not to give you the quadratic structure, but it is important to understand that Hashem hides himself, and our job is to reveal Hashem. That's our job in the world. He hides, we reveal. That's the great task. So when I give tzedakah, when I put on tefillin, whatever I do, I'm revealing Hashem's oneness in the world, taking those sparks, in Kabbalah they're called sparks, the sparks that are dispersed, and I'm gathering those sparks together. Okay, if you understand this concept, we're going to go back into Purim and into history. When Hashem came to Nevi'im, that was amazing. A Navi heard Hashem speak. But in a certain way, that took away that Navi's Bechira Chavshis. If you went into first Beis HaMikdash and you saw miracles, that's amazing. But doesn't that take away a little of your Bechira Chavshis? So the purpose of creation is not the state of Bayis Rishon. Bayis Rishon was important. It was important to acclimate us to the concept that Hashem is in this world, that I could see Hashem, I could see the Chut HaShani turn from red to white, I could see these miracles, but that's not the end game. It's preparation for the end game. What is the end game? The end game is when Hashem is totally hidden. And that's when the work begins for the world. So Hashem prepares us. Slowly but surely, Hashem weans us off of seeing Him b'poil, seeing Him physically, as it were, seeing those miracles. Hashem weans us away from that in the same way that a parent may start off with training wheels when a child rides a bicycle, but then eventually the training wheels come off and the parent doesn't stand next to the child. You remember learning how to ride a bike? Your parent may have held onto the bike, and eventually the parent stops and the child rides on their own. And that's what's going on. Instead of going downhill, instead of each generation and each tekufa getting worse, actually, each generation gets closer and closer to the point of swimming on their own and beginning the task of gathering the sparks. You cannot gather Hashem's sparks when you see Hashem there. The miracle stops that bechira, that task of Eidus Yechuda, of Gilu Yechuda, of revealing Hashem's oneness. Because Hashem already revealed His oneness by doing a miracle. So after the first Beis HaMikdash, we have the second Beis HaMikdash. But in between those two, we have a yontif called Purim. And Purim is the great yontif of hiddenness. It's the transition to the next stage of taking off the training wheels. What does the word Purim mean? Purim means a lottery. A lottery, by its very nature, seems to be by chance. I don't know what I'm going to choose. I don't know what I'm going to pick. Purim is all about the hiddenness. And therefore Esther, the wonderful Esther, is Hashem saying, next step in gathering my sparks. First Beis HaMikdash over. Second Beis HaMikdash is not going to have those miracles, and I'm going to transition you through a miracle that you don't see me. And that's going to be how I train you to find me in the hidden places of this universe. Are we following? It's amazing. It's uplifting. All of a sudden, instead of going downhill, we're in a beautiful place of growth that is transitioned through Purim. So when you read the Megillah, Hashem's name is not mentioned. And Esther, the whole miracle that happens seems to, she's beautiful. He needs a wife. It happens, there was a percentage of people who were Jews, and he happened to choose a Jew. He happened to overhear a big son of a Seresh. Haman happened to be from Amalek and wanted to. Everything happened to happen. And it was up to us to put the pieces together, which is why it is so important to have Pirsumei Nisa. Because the Pirsumei Nisa is us declaring that the hiddenness is not so hidden. We can see through. We see what's going on, Hashem. We see what you're doing. Interesting. What was Esther's real name? Hadassah. Hadassah, from Hadassim. So Chazal say that Hadassim, by the Arba Minim on Sukkot, Hadassim, just like all the Arba Minim, represent a part of the body. So the Lulav represents the spine, the Shedra. The Esrog represents the Lev. The Aravas represent the lips. And what do Hadassim represent? The eyes. To be able to see what is not obvious. That was Esther. That's the connection. You like that, right? That's the connection between Hadassah and Esther. Esther is Hashem's hidden. Hadassah says, but I could still see. As a matter of fact, now we can understand a beautiful Maimer Chazal. Chazal say, Esther Yirakrekes Haisa. She was green. Does that mean she looked like a crocodile? She looked like a Martian? What does it mean she was green? Plus, why is green beautiful? Green sounds like if I eat something spoiled, I turn green. What does it mean she was green? If you look around nature, what is the natural color of the world? It's green. Photosynthesis makes everything green. She was Yerakrekes, means she was able to see with her Hadassah eyes that the green that exists, every blade of grass, every tree, Every flower, every leaf, it's Hashem. Yirak Rekas Haisa. She was able to transcend and see that nature is not natural. It is Hashem telling the grass to grow, telling the earth to orbit the sun exactly where it's supposed to be, with the oxygen where it's supposed to be. She was brilliant in that manner, and through her brilliance, she was able to teach Klal Yisrael that even in this new stage that we are transitioning to, where Hashem says, okay, I'm taking out the training wheels, no more miracles. You get ready, get set, you're going to have to find me now. You'll be able to find me. Okay, ready for the next step? Okay. And that's, by the way, why we put on masks. Right? Hashem being hidden sounds like a bad thing. No, we're celebrating the transition. Picture a couple, newlywed, and their parents say, oh, come live next to us. Not always a great idea. Right? Come live next to us. We'll take good care of you. And maybe in the beginning they do. She's sick. She doesn't want to make supper. So she'll go over to mommy and mom will bring supper. But eventually, the next growth in their relationship is to separate and to be on their own and to build their family. We had that next stage that we had to transition to. Hashem says, Beis HaMikdash Sheni is coming and you're not going to have these. And even more so, Galus is coming after that. And you're going to have even less. So, what does all that have to do with Achatas? Well, let's understand something. We understand that the Jewish people had Achatas during Matan Torah. How do we know that the Jewish people were unified? Because it says, "Vayichan Sham Yisrael neged ha'ar, ki'ish echad, b'lev echad." They stood as one person with one heart. There was Achatas. There was Achatas. However, listen carefully. There was Achatas in accepting Torah Shebechsav. The Torah Shebechsav had the Achatas. The Torah Sheba'al Peh, not so much. The Torah Shebechsav, that they accepted, they're hearing Hashem. But the Torah Sheba'al Peh, there was fighting. All the way, right away with the Egel Azav. And then with the Meraglim. Dasim Va'aviram. There was fighting that went on as the Jewish people moved to Eretz Yisrael. We eventually broke up. Yehuda and Yisrael, Malchus Yehuda, Malchus Yisrael. We needed to accept the Achdus that Hashem wants us to have, even with the Torah Sheba'al Peh. I'll explain to you what this means. What makes Achdus so important? Why is it that I could look at somebody and not feel connected to them? The answer is simple, because they're not me. But they are you. If you want to gather sparks, then the notion of gathering sparks is you and I are the same. We're all part of oneness of Hashem, Gilu Yehuda. What's the opposite of Gilu Yehuda, revealing Hashem as one in the world? Well, Sinas Chinam. I don't hate the next person unless I see them as separate. You understanding? So the only way that I can gather sparks is through Achatas. Achatas says that you are me and I am you. So if you're poor, I'll give you Matanos Lavyon, but if you're not poor, I will still give you gifts. You know why? Because I like to get gifts. I like to get gifts. So we'll have Achatas, even if people are wealthy. Doesn't make a difference. I want to tell you. That's why Klal Yisrael, we have a minhag. We have a minhag. We go around and we give more than one shalach manas. I could just give one shalach manas. That's all I need to do. Matanos Lavyon is to two people, right? But shalach manas ish l'rayehu. So why is it that people give 50 shalach manas? It's not folly. It's not silly. It's not over the top. It's us promoting Achatas. What a glorious thing. Now, I would tell you that it's a very important thing, if you can, to find somebody who's not religious and maybe doesn't even know what Purim is, and make a nice little basket for them. surprise them, give it to them. The message will be loud and clear to them, maybe even more than to the firm person, because the firm person knows, Shalachwan is, okay, you give me, I give you, I know the drill. But somebody who doesn't know what it is, and they may work in your office, they may be the doorman, they may be somebody who just passes by, and they'll be so shocked. What do you mean you're giving it to me? Why? Because we're one. We're one nation. We're one people. We love each other. Even if we don't know each other's names, even if we don't practice the same. That's Achatas. Achatas is Gilu Yechudo. And the Jewish people, while they accepted the basics of Torah Shebechsav, Torah Sheba'al Peh. Now, why is this important to know? Because a lot of Torah Shebechsav doesn't mandate what Torah Sheba'al Peh mandates. The nitty-gritty in Torah Shebechsav, it doesn't say invite guests to your Pesach Seder. That's the Rabban, that's Torah Sheba'al Peh. The Torah Sheba'al Peh is what tells us how much truma to give. It's the Torah Sheba'al Peh that makes sure that we give Meiser Kesef, even though Meiser Ksafim is not beferish in the Torah. It's Torah Sheba'al Peh that focuses us to make us much better connected. It is the Chafetz Chaim, for example, who took a pasuk, a few psukim, a number of psukim, and wove into that the halachas of Lashon Hara. The Torah Sheba'al Peh is what mandates Achatas, and therefore this is the yontiv of Torah Sheba'al Peh. Okay. Let's say something else about Esther. Esther Hamalka. People wonder. We have a Megillah named after a woman, right? Not understanding that we also have Megillah Shros. Not understanding that Hanukkah is after Yehudis. That's why women are not supposed to do work. Not understanding that Pesach is all about Noshim Tzidkaniyos Nigalu. The truth of the matter is every yontif out there is a celebration of Jewish womanhood. Every single one. Why? Because women are on a certain madrega that is very, very special and very unique. Esther specifically was like that. You see, Esther lived what could have been considered a very tragic life. Her father passed away during childbirth. Her mother passed away during labor. She had no parents. If anyone should be angry at the world, if anyone should say, where is God? Where is Hashem? It's Esther. Let alone being taken by a non-Jewish king, being made to be with him against her will. Esther could have said, Hashem, where are you? Lama Zavtani. And instead, Esther, with her special eyes, said, no, it's just the hiddenness. It's the hiddenness that needs to be revealed through our mitzvahs, through our fighting for Torah. That's the glory of Esther. So, I'm going to bring this to a practical application, but let's review so we understand exactly what's going on. Hashem originally created the world with miracles. Torah itself, the great miracle, Kolos Avrakim, and the entire nation heard Hashem speak. Where their Bechira was is a good question. There are good answers, but tremendous miracles. We couldn't do our job at that point. Later on, the Nevi'im, okay? Less connection to Hashem, but still a lot. Bayis Rishon, still miracles, less connection. Purim, that entire transition. Okay, now Hashem says, I'm going to take away the training wheels. Now you're going to be on your own. Bayis Sheni, much less miracles. And then Gullus. And this Gullus is the long Gullus because this Gullus is the actual ride. The actual task began in this Gullus. That's why this Gullus is so important. It's the reason that Hashem had to scatter us everywhere. Because Hashem says, now you're going to be scattered, and now you have to be mashpia on the world. Coronavirus. Jew running for president. A Holocaust. The refuseniks. Eretz Yisrael in its flux as we're speaking. They're up to election number 3. They're already talking about election number 4. It's a world that's full of tumult. And it's a world that seems to be missing direction. And it's exactly in this world that we have to uncover the hiddenness of Hashem. So, there are 3 kinds of hiddenness that we need to uncover. The hiddenness of Hashem within ourselves, the hiddenness of Hashem within the next person, and the hiddenness of Hashem within the world at large. Let's start with the first one. When I spoke to these ladies today at the Makarvas conference, so usually when I come, I'm asked to speak, to train in Makarvim and Makarvas. How do you meet students? How do you connect with them? What do you do when you're sitting down to coffee? What kind of Israel trips are available? It's sort of the nuts and bolts, it's the meat and potatoes of Kiruv. But that's not how I began. I want to tell you how I began. I told them, I want to tell you something. I know you amazing Makarvos in your different campuses have a great task ahead of you. You know the task is called Shalom Bayis. You're working to keep your marriage strong. And you have another task, to raise good Yiddish Kinderlach. Not easy to do. In this day and age, very hard to do. You need special siyata d'shmaya. You have another task. You have the tasks that you have at home that are part of your lot in life. Perhaps making supper each night. Perhaps keeping the house together. Perhaps looking put together, which is not easy, to always be on show, always looking together. And on top of the shalom bayis, on top of the raising the children, on top of keeping the house going, on top of all that, you also, by the way, happen to be a part-time mikareves. And we all know part-time is nonsense. You're full-time. No such thing as part-time. The only thing that's part-time is your salary. The full-time is the job. So what are you doing? What are you doing? Are you superwoman? How are you doing this? How are you maintaining shalom bayis, keeping a marriage intact and growing, and raising a healthy family, a growth-oriented family, and keeping a house, the domestic engineer par excellence, making big Shabbatonim. I always like to mention my wife. We have 70, 80 guests a week, and my wife makes 250 meals a week. All while keeping the house together. And I do a lot of traveling. It's my job. So she has to do a lot of it on her own. Superwoman. Hadassah. Esther. Understanding that underneath the drudgery and the difficulty is within a power that we possess. To be goal-oriented, to be passionately driven. And that's what keeps you moving. I told these ladies, that's what keeps you moving. Otherwise, on paper, you should quit. It's too hard. It's too hard. Doing half the things you're doing is more than enough. If I were to say raising children is a full-time job, I don't think anyone here in this room would disagree. If you did nothing but raise children, that's a full-time job plus. Just going shopping for the kids each season. And if you got daughters, I know you need dresses in each season. And then they're growing and you can't use last season's. And at the same time, you have to make sure the tuition. And then if you've got a lot of kids, and then you've got 8 or 10. Baruch Hashem, we have 11 kids. You have all the registrations, the yeshivas. And if you have your kids in different yeshivas, registrations for every yeshiva. And then you got to come up with checks. And you come over meekly. Do we have money for registration for 10 kids with $500 of registration time? It's craziness. Yeah, it's heading your way. And And maybe you do have a car, maybe you don't have a car, maybe you do have a cleaning lady, maybe you don't. Difficult. So how are you doing kiruv? With which time of the day are you allotting? I don't see any time left. And yet these very heroic women are learning with 10, 15, 20 students a week, besides making Shabbatonim. Some of them even go on trips. Fascinating, right? That's the inner hiddenness. What we see from Esther is that we each have within us this amazing resource, this reservoir of power. Esther did not know that she could do this. And you know what Mordechai said? If you don't do this, there'll be another person who could do it. There'll be other salvation. But you, Esther, you could do this. And she could say, what do you mean? I've got queenly duties. I'm going to jeopardize my life. I'm going to go in unannounced. I may die. I'm going to tell him I'm a Jew. Don't you know the king with a seal, he just had to kill all the Jews. And then I'm going to go in and say, by the way, your queen's a Jew. Oh my goodness. Get rid of her. Even if he lowers the scepter. And yet, she found that reservoir without parents to give her chizuk. Just a cousin. Cousin Mordechai. That was it. So we have inside us this great reservoir. But sometimes we don't know how to tap into it. And we feel exhausted. And we feel tapped out. And that could happen a lot. And there are times that we are tapped out. That self-awareness is important as well. To know when to say ad kan. To say enough. But at the same time, to understand that if you find it, you will surprise yourself. Hashem made women particularly incredibly resilient. It's the reason that women have children and men don't, because men couldn't do it. I tell you as a man, I faint when they prick my finger to take a little blood. Like I can't. I wouldn't. It's hard. It's difficult. The reservoir of strength that you have is unfathomable. But just like you have it, so too there's a hiddenness in the next person. And this is number 2. The next person who you see, if you could just believe in them, you will empower them and their hidden greatness will come out. One of the things I had to do when I was a rabbi at UCLA many years ago is I had to train in rabbis to work under me. Now that's hard. I'll tell you why it's hard. Training is not hard. But it's keeping quiet while they make mistakes. That's hard. Because you just say this to the student and they'll go to Eretz Yisrael and they'll go learn and they'll grow, and I'm going to keep quiet because I'm going to allow you to make mistakes. I can't do that. Got to jump in. I got to micromanage. I got to make sure that things go smoothly. Except that that's not how it goes. You have to see in the next person. I have a sister who's a very, very special person, who's a great speaker. She's much greater than people even realize. You may know who she is. Her name is Rivka Malka Perlman. And she's a tremendous, tremendous person, much greater than people understand. I just spent time with her in Eretz Yisrael, and I got to see behind the scenes her avodas Hashem is just remarkable. And she used to say, the goal in life is to have magic eyes. You know what magic eyes are? Magic eye means to be able to see in the next person the greatest version of themselves. If you could look at your children with magic eyes, instead of nitpicking and micromanaging and criticizing and nudging, instead with magic eyes, such a sweet Yingala, such a wonderful, I believe in you so much. Go, you could speak. Go, you could do this. You want to go to dance? I'll pay to give you dance lessons. Okay, you'll quit after one time, but still, I think you could do it. I'm your biggest fan club. I'm your backer. When kids feel like that, then they thrive, they blossom, they grow, they feel empowered. And when your friends feel like that, then they grow. People want to be around another person who believes in them. That hiddenness that you have inside of you, That's Hashem. That's the Koach Elokam Mimal that's waiting to burst forth and change the world. And history is replete with men and women who started with humble backgrounds. And when you look at them, they don't look like they have the tools to be great, and yet they're astonishingly great. And then the last hiddenness is in the world. When we see things that look treacherous or dangerous, and we read the news, and it's not good to read the news so often. It gets you down. You live in the moment. Oh no, the debate. Okay, he did good, he did bad. There's going to be a virus. There's going to be this, Eretz Yisrael. There's a big picture. And the big picture is run by Hashem. And that's the third hiddenness. Hashem says, I got this. I got this. Don't worry. I'm telling you, if you don't look at the news for the next year, the only thing you'll see is who's the president. You didn't have to go through this silly journey of up and down, up and down. People are hanging to every word of every candidate. That's why Emunah is the great task of our generation. Emunah, to understand that everything is part of Yichud Hashem. And I'm just going to go like a good soldier and do Eidos Yichudah by doing mitzvahs. And when people see me, they will see that I'm gathering the sparks. And they'll be empowered and they'll be inspired. And they're not going to be worried about every news cycle, who's up and who's down. They're going to know Hashem has this in the bag. Hashem always did. It's all part of Hashem's grand plan. That's the avodah of Purim. Ve'anochi haster aster panai. I'm ready to take off the training wheels. You're going to go ride on your own. I'm going to transition you through the miracle of Purim. I'm going to give you a booster shot with the miracle of Hanukkah that took place later. A little bit of a booster shot so you'll see that I'm around, that I'm here. And then you begin Galus. And then I'm going to scatter you, and you have to go and gather the sparks from all over the world. Bring them back to Eretz Yisrael. Bring them back to Hashem. And if we do that, then Purim becomes the one yontif that even after Mashiach comes, we will continue to celebrate, say Chazal. Because it is the yontif of our chelik, of gathering the sparks, that actually will bring Mashiach. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah.